friends, good morning and welcome to today's webinar on reshaping the future of procurement. Friends, procurement has come a long way if I see. I'll certainly touch on those details. From a purchasing center to being considered as a strategic partner. And if I look back only 1 year back, 2020, it has easily proved around that procurement and supply chain landscape will never be same. So that means there's an urgent need to reshape around. If I look at the new business environment, it calls for it, certainly a change. It calls for unifying three things around, which we are all learning. One is resiliency. You talk to the economics, they talk of resilient in economy. So we talk of procurement, we'll say we want a resilient procurement around. Supply chain will say I want supply chain. So the word resilience has become very critical now. So we need to unify resiliency. And resiliency cannot come without transparencies. So we need to again have resiliency, transparency, and the last I would touch on sustainability. So these three parameters need to be certainly unified if we want to survive, if we want procurement to be effective. Now, coming back to this, keeping these background in mind, so what my presentation would be, first thing is the evolution of procurement, historical part. I know I asked this question many times, people around, but then I will touch a little bit from the pyramid time, the historical part of procurement. Procurement presently what it is and what is going to be in future. This is the way I see it after spending 25 years in the US and Europe. Now, when I see in India in the last 10 years, I'll try to blend both things around. Then what are the impact of disruptions? We talk of disruption. And last year disruption was because of COVID-19 pandemic. So those disruptions, what exactly disruption is and how they are affected in 2020, and how to address them. And this could happen maybe in future, who knows? I know this was more of a black swan because this happened only once. I would say in my life, I would say it's the first time. People say it's once in a century is around. So it's a black swan event around, which was unpredictable. Now, how to cope with digital era? So ultimately, everybody says, guys, if we want to unify resilience, transparency, and sustainability, we need to be quick to respond. And quick to respond means I must have data easily available. It should be available on the real-time basis. So in short, we are moving toward digital era. So this is where I plan to cover up. And let me again touch on this part. So the key takeaways, as I said to you, evolution of procurement, procurement today and future, impact of COVID-19, building resiliencies, and digital enablers, which are the ones, procurement 4.0. Shortly, the key objective is how do we defend the value? I know if they look back historically, procurement is all about cost saving. It's not saving, it's not cost saving, is still a key component of value. But this is not the only one. And we want to become the innovator of change around. So when we become the innovator of change, we are able to improve the revenue as well. So this is where we need to work it out. So coming back to this, the quote of the day, which I feel around could be relevant. Procurement professionals have the best job in the organization by far. Why I'm calling the best job? Because they are the one who has the ability to influence the company all the ways. Ultimately, if we talk of this, any company's revenue, let's say it's around $2 billion, 70 to 80% is nothing but procurement and supply chain. So that means you basically control it and the way procurement does it. So I would say it is one of the best jobs which connects with everybody in every function. Coming back to evolution, I'll touch a little bit historical part. I thought this may be also important to know the history part around. Talk from the pyramid time, which is 3000 BC. So we're talking of 5,000 years now. Traces of procurement can be seen. It was there that when they made the pyramid, I had a chance to look at it. I've been there around. So they have been throughout the history, but no designated function was there. Purchasing, buying function was not there those days. The very first time the function procurement came up in the book in 1832. So then it solidified in importance during Industrial Revolution. So when Industrial Revolutions came around, it became like a supplying department. Then it shifts again. The World War came, procurement initiated to shift back to strategic role to strictly to clerical. So earlier they were becoming a little bit strategic, but then when the World War came, there was a shortage of everything. So the function became purely clerical, buying. Just buy from this company. No worry to get 3 quotation or 5 quotation, nothing. Choices were not there. So when we go to the mid-60s, procurement once again took on managerial role on a wide scale. And the concept came of materials management. I remember those people who joined in since 70s or 80s, the department used to be called materials manager. They will look at the bill of material, they'll say, okay, this stock we have, this we don't have, this is what we need to buy. And companies are also vertically integrated. They were not that much horizontal integrated. There were hardly any outsourcing. Outsourcing was very limited, except for the raw materials around. So it was all materials management. The 1980s saw a significant increase in supplier competition. If you go till 60s or 70s, there was no post of a chief procurement officer. There was hardly any person who will call out a CPO. But 80s, when 80s came, it became supplier competition, supplier management became very important factors around. Now coming back to today and future. So this was the historical. So you can say your function dates back to typically 3000 BC back, except the name has been changing around, called from supply office, materials management, purchasing, buying, purchasing, procurement, supply management, all those terms have been changing around. Then came the strategic era. And that's the time I was based in Denmark. And we saw in 80s and actually call around, the role of procurement began its transition to strategic sourcing. So guys, okay, so far we were doing all tactical work, operational procurement, end of it. Somebody will tell me the list, somebody will tell me the name of the supplier, place an order, that's all. Very purely clerical function. This is why in those days, you will never see people coming with a good education moving into this direction. So it became strategic function. So this is where it started attracting people into this profession. Now, procurement officials looked at the supplier as partner. This concept came later. Earlier, nobody thought supplier as partner. Supplier was just sit outside, I'll call you when I need you. They were not the partners. And the very first one I learned around was when the Japanese company moved to the US, auto companies, both Toyota and this. They were trying to build up the supplier, local supplier, and they were very much in this partnership, supplier relationship. While the local companies are not so much, and they did very well, Japanese company, because they treated supplier as partners. Then later on, the concept came of SRM. I mean, basically it emerged from CRM. People say, guys, we could have a relationship with customer. Why not with supplier? The both end. Both are important. So that started, I would say, the beginning of procurement's modern day evolution path. It solidified the spot at the management level. Then you could have people who were coming at the CPO level, chief procurement officers. And the function which used to be under finance, in some places it become equal. I know it created some conflict in many companies around. Those of you who still report to finance, and when you come at equal to CFO and CPO, there were some conflicts around. That marriage of CPO and CFO was not comfortable in the companies around. So this is the era which I have seen around in 80s and 90s in the US. But now, so when I came in the US, in India, when I came in 2010, this was picking up, I would say. So India was a little back, slow in that sense, around 10 to 15 years on this concept. So starting from 2010, I cite around few companies will come to us, Christian, we want to do something on strategic procurement. And for them, the strategic was nothing but consolidation. I mean, there is a strategy, I'm not questioning it, but it was not typically a strategy. Strategic means it is done in partnership with other stakeholders. Otherwise, it's never a success. So far, I saw many companies, oh, we are doing strategic procurement. I said, how do you do? Oh, yeah, we were buying this and we consolidated. And now with consolidation, I'm getting a good price. So that is a strategy. So to me, that is a very one small component of it. So it has to be a cross-functional. If it is not cross-functional, I think it is lacking in something. In the last few years, you are seeing around e-procurement, e-procurement, e-procurement. So basically, we are moving away from the only ERP approach. We are moving into the e-solutions, ERFX, e-auctions, ESRM. So technically, all the cloud-based tools around. And those tools allow me to connect with my all stakeholders, including supplier. While if I have got ERPs, let's say in 2005, I had a chance to implement around worldwide in 200 country offices, I will not allow suppliers to connect with my ERP. ERP is still a finance tool, I would call it, connecting all the function in the organization. The name is enterprise. There's no second thought. Enterprise resource planning system, fine. It moved from MRP to ERP. So ERP connected from the finance angle, all the functions together. But when I look from procurement, it didn't serve that big purpose around. So then next came was the e-procurement solution. Now we are still struggling. I would say if I talk in India, we are still struggling on e-procurement solutions. So we need to still go a long way on these e-tools. And the beautiful thing, they're all available as a SaaS system through the cloud-based, very effective. The next thing which has learned come from the last years, I would say 2020, when we were all affected by COVID-19's era, timings around. So then people say, guys, suddenly I wake up and I find the supplier is not able to deliver because they were depending on tier 2, tier 3, and I don't have a visibility there. So I need a digital system to connect myself, a transparent system to connect myself. So all those changes came around in the digital era. So now people say, guys, I want the strategic sourcing next step to become more predictive. It cannot become predictive until I have got data with me. And data also on a real-time basis. Data analytics on this with. So once I have got data analytics done, it gives me straight on my computers, guys, this is going to happen. Your tier 1 is failing. So better find a new suppliers around. It becomes the predictive one. And then there are transactional procurement, which are P2P, procure to pay. Now, ultimately in P2P, if I have got an approved supplier, already negotiated supplier, why should I spend my time? If my system says, guys, once it goes to the minimum level, place an order. So that becomes, again, I would call around, in sense, automated part. The third key component which comes around is supplier management. If you think of a bigger picture of procurement, there are 3 pillars. Sourcing, so which I would call now becoming a strategic sourcing. Second, I need my P2P. So that means the 2 pillars becomes around strategic sourcing, which should cover my 70 to 80% of my spend. P2C could cover 20%, which still I know we have to go a long way. And third one is managing the vendors, managing the suppliers around, because suppliers are my key things. They are my partners. I remember the days in the good old days when people, supplier comes and say, wait outside, you are not so important, we'll call you when we need you. But now suppliers are becoming partners. They are the one who are becoming the source for innovation. And the key reason is, since I've seen the history from 70s till now, in those days, when I was working with Tatas in the beginning in Mumbai, majority things were done in-house. Few things were being procured from outside. Suppliers were not the innovators. But now today, when 80% things are coming from supplier, you talk of any big companies around, and if you talk of a Walmart, or you talk of anyone, even if you talk of even Apple, 100% come from outside, except you design. You manage the supply chain. But the components are designed OEMs by the supplier. So that means the suppliers are becoming your source of innovations. You cannot ignore them. So now how do I make them proactive basis? So these are 3 things I'll go into depth later. So let's understand the value proposition. It gives you purchasing. And during the books, if you look at the good old books of purchasing, the first chapter starts with 5 R's. Now people don't talk of rights around. So this was the very first pocket around, and we talked to the 5 rights. and total supply cost reduction. That used to be the focus. Then we have moved from purchasing to strategic. And if you look at the game changer, started from there. Earlier, it was not a game changer. It was just a function to cut the cost, assuming right price, right this, right that. Okay. Now the next concept was reduction of unneeded demand activities. Why am I buying this? I'm questioning it now. I'm looking at the specifications also. So earlier purchasing guy was just going as per the design, but now since they have a touch, they have the front face with the supplier, they get beautiful ideas from suppliers. They say, can we change this? Can we do this? This will be done much faster. Cost will go down. So you're becoming strategic. And now we are moving into the value part. Please don't misunderstand me when I say value. When cost reduction is only one component of value. Like you and me, when we buy an Apple phone or something around, we say, it adds value. Although you're paying more price. So value has many other components around. So it is not only the cost reduction. If I go further on this part, this gives much more clarity on this, the value addition. I have a business, I have a market. Now business and market, I want to connect together. Because most of the things, 80% are coming from the suppliers. Few additions are there from my side. So the buying is there. Buying became purchasing, then became strategic. And strategic also in the beginning was called strategic procurement. Then it moved to the category management. Those companies which are an e-commerce company, they still follow key category management. Other companies still have to go a long way. I've been to many of the big companies around, 2 procurement officers. I'm dealing also strategic procurement. My colleague is also dealing strategic procurement. I'm buying from the same supplier $5 million worth. Other one is also spending $3 million worth. Why not I combine together, make a category bigger one? I have bigger clout around to negotiate. Then come the value management. So value management is a major focus. So if I want to show this in a graphic this way, from price management, the old fashioned became the cost management, total cost of ownership, strategic sourcing. These years which I'm showing you, 2000, they are basically for India. If I go back to Europe and US, it was 10 years before this. Category management, and now we are all talking of value management. And this value management can help us not only the bottom line, also the top line. Till I'm strategic sourcing, category management, I'm only focusing on the bottom line, how I can cut my costs and improve my bottom line. But if I'm dealing with suppliers and trying to get innovative products from them, that means I'm adding the value at the top level also, at the revenue level also. So when my revenue goes up, my bottom line goes down, so my profitability goes up. I become the key player at the top post. So this is the way the trends is coming around. So broadly, all of you know, I will just skip very quickly on this. So one is a very reactive function, historical procurement. Strategic sourcing is proactive. I will still say only 30%, 25% companies are still in this chapter. So we are still far behind. I think we need to work very hard on this if we want to cover up this gap around. Coming back to the black swan events, this is where the whole turning point comes up. The game changing come from here. I know people say it's this white swan or black swan. I would call still the black swan because it is certainly one unexpected. Hard to predict. Who would have predicted this would have happened? High impact event, very big event. All economies were affected. Most of the sectors were affected. The country which was supposed to show some growth in GDP, they were dipping down. So we also had a minus side. Now only in the last quarter, we are going 0.4 up in the GDP. So there is there. So that means if we want to handle such swans around, we have to improve the robustness in procurement and supply chain. So, and I know in some cases also, so I'm putting the 2 words procurement and supply chain. The disruptions happen nowadays in 4 areas. First, I will take the ecosystem. I'm working in silos. I come to my office, work very hard, great, I've done my job, but I don't know the impact of that around. I don't know what changes are happening around. I remember a company which I had a chance to work as a consultant. They were dealing with chocolates and biscuits and all those things around. So last year when they were having around every month, when they start the production, the demand has changed. And by the time they get the information, the production planning people, or procurement planning people, it's too late. So you need to be connected to the ecosystem. You need a control towers to connect yourself. The linear system is out. In the good old days with the linear system, every information will go to first from the customer to sales people, then from other people, then down the line will come up, and it's too late. So ecosystem need to be built up with all the stakeholders. Procurement has to take the lead role in this. So ecosystem means it cannot possible with ERP. You need to move into e-system. You need to go into digital procurement. The next thing which is changing is the technology part. Let's say two companies are competing together. In my companies, they have got 100 people dealing with procurement. Out of 180 people are doing only transaction. Other company has made a beautiful long-term agreements. 80% of spend is done through strategic or through category management. And only 10 to 20%, which is the firefighting things, I do through operation and I do through my tactical way. I agree with that. But if I automate the P2P, so my staff may be half of them, and I'm doing much quicker. My information is real-time basis. So technology also could become disruptor. I mean, there are two companies making the same product, but one has got a better technology, and this disrupts the other one because the person with technology is much faster than them. Fluctuations. The example I was telling you of the chocolate companies around, fluctuation of the demands are changing. I planned today, if I'm the head of the production planning around, I've done S&OP and I've planned everything, and the next day before I'm going to load the machines and the people workload, I think the whole change has happened. I need those information. And environment also is, we are talking of global warming, all those impacts around, anything could happen, they could also disrupt it. Your suppliers are based those places where there's a flood. I know in 2011, many auto parts were coming from Thailand. They had for 3 months, big floods around. So environment also could make a big change. So are you ready for that? That's what we need to do. So if I talk only procurement per se, technology is one thing, environment is another one. People are also there. People are not trained to cope up with this. Compliance part is there. Globalization. I remember in 80s when I was studying in the US around for my MBAs, globalization was a key word. And I was very impressed with the concepts around. Looked around from looking at the low-cost country. But now we have seen in the last 1 year, great idea globalizations, but if they are not able to deliver me, my whole production comes to a halt. I'm not able to even buy the essential products around. So globalization, people have started looking back into different ideas. Why not we have a nearshoring? So cost which we have lost in the last 1 year could be covered in another way around. So globalization is also having different thoughts around. So if we look at the chain dimensions, which was done based on a survey, the key disruptors are risk, which you could call this one in this case resilience one. Sustainability is the one, transparency is the one. So if we want to survive effectively, cost effectively, efficiently, in the years to come, we need to control these disruptors. Let me take one good example of the disruptor which we went through last year. Now we had the warning, actually November 2018, people knew that this is COVID-19 is in China, but nobody thought this will come to us also. So by the time we started acting on it, so the delayed impact, the first response in the recovery, and by the time recovery you could think of it is already dropped down. We are in the lockdown, full impact was there. Now we are going back. So the impact, we may come back. So those conditions which affected us. So we had a drop around, now we're trying to recover, but recovery, for the initial stage, yes, recovery, but in the long run, if we want to survive, we have to do better than the previous one. We have to cover up all this. So this is where there are three. If I'm doing a supply chain design, because you should not forget the procurement is again a part of the supply chain. So that means the procurement parameters sometimes come from the supply chain designer. If I'm the supply chain designer, I want my chain to be robust. Great. Robust means I made more capacities around, I buy big numbers, I have a big inventories around, even if ups and downs happen, my inventory is big. I've seen those days in 70 when we used to keep inventory of 4 months, 5 months, 6 months. Then later on we became lean and lean and lean. I agree. So robust means I don't care, but then it's become inefficient. My cost goes up. But you need robustness. Now it depends on to what level. Next comes, guys, okay, there's some problem happens to me. Am I able to respond? Am I agile? If not, then again I have a problem. I lose my customer. The last one is resilient, mean the problem comes to me, but I'm so resilient enough, I go down, then I get back to it. Old conditions around. So this is where I can explain around. My supplier is not able to deliver, but I'm so robust, I've kept a stock for 1 year, 6 months. That's fine. It looks good, but there's a cost behind it. So robustness is all linked with the supply risk. Flexibility and agility is linked with the customer risk. I have a lot of inventories with me. So whenever customer wants, I'm ready with the product. But if product becomes obsolete, I lose my money. I have wastages. But if I want a business performance to be good, combination of supply risk and customer risk, I need to be resilient. So resilient is the one which takes a very good combination of all those things around. Any changes in the environment may happen, but if I'm resilient enough, I can withstand them. I can withstand the impact around. My business performance is not affected. Agility, I can get it by having extra stock around. Robustness, I can have it with a more capacity of production. But I need a resilience. So this is where the definition difference comes between risk and resilience around. The rule of thumb is when you're primarily faced by risk, it makes sense to invest in improving resistance only. If you have only problem with the risk, then you take care of resistance. But if you're getting into resilience, you need to do both. Invest in improving the recovery capabilities. Can I get recovered back fast? Same with your health also. Can I recover back quickly? That's what we were looking at the resilience part now. So there are 4 parameters of resilience. One is avoidance. Then I've got containment, stabilization, return. And this is what we have seen in the last 1 year. We all went through in the beginning. We were trying to avoid it through whatever factors, through lockdown and this. Then we were able to contain somewhat. And once we get stabilized, then we are getting back. So in the month of September, October, we were coming to some stabilizations. Now we're getting back to return part. So this is the 4 parameters. But this cycle time we have lost is big. How to cut it down? So when we want to think of redesigning the whole supply chain, then resilience has got 2 parameters: resistance, recovery. Resistance, if I've got a resistance, I can avoid. Things will not trouble me. If I have got a resistance, then I have to be robust. Containment, recovery, then I have to be stabilized and return around. So this is where we look around. If we want recovery side good and this side good, I think then we have a good thing around. Now here to show the resilience cycle starting from avoidance goes up to return. But if you want this not to happen again, you have to think of much more than that. So this is where we go review again, avoidance again. So when designing the supply chain, because procurement is part of it, so supply chain will decide how much stock I have to keep around, how much I have to buy around, how much inventory, how many suppliers to do around. They do it as a whole. If you're all integrated, I know in many companies, procurement is separate silos function, supply chain is a separate silo function. But here my request to you will be, again, we need to integrate them also. If we don't integrate, supply chains are designing their own, procurement is designing its own, but procurement alone can't do anything agility. The parameters will come from the supply chain guy. So we need to first think of, I had a chance to do it in one of the few countries' offices around. I said, guys, we're all connecting all the functions together. So you have complete knowledge of the chain, not small chain. So agility means you need a visibility, you need a velocity to respond back. Like a tiger, you're able to respond quickly. Then we need to have supply chain collaboration. And supply chain cannot succeed without collaborative function, without stakeholders. You need to involve the stakeholders. And you need to get intelligence what is happening with this. And based on that, you take an action on procurement or purchasing wherever you are. And understanding the supply chain, designing part. So keep in mind, both the functions, procurement alone cannot do anything until you are effectively connected with supply chain. So to me, it is more like a boat going in the sea water, but the guy, supply chain guys, oh, I've done my job. Logistics says I've done my job. Procurement says I've done my job, but ultimately soap is still sinking. So you need to connect together. Silos concept is to get away. So, okay, guys, this is the way procurement navigation's part. I know the last years when we had around how to keep the lights on, how to keep the production going on. Then slowly we have come to phase 2, managing the rebound part. Then we said, okay, guys, now I can rebound. I have sufficient funds, lowering the cost base, then I can cut my costs around. Now I'm trying to reposition. And lastly, I'm trying to, now once I come to that level, let's say in the month of January or February this year. So risk management, decentralizing procurements around. So that means I'm not depending on procurement with one supplier. I am keeping choices with me. So this is where we come to the recovery part. Coming back to again tomorrow's procurement, it has to be certainly strategic. If any one of you still have got 80% people on the technical side and strategic is only 10 or 15%, you guys have to change it now. Until you feel that every day you're buying new items, that's a different ball game. You can't plan. But I still have to see any companies around. There are many items which you have been buying for the last 3 years, 4 years. Specs might be changing. I agree with that. But concepts are similar. So you should move into the strategic part. So you have to involve the stakeholders, strategy development, and strategy has to match and align with the corporate strategy. If you want to be at the C table, you can only be at the C table when your strategy is aligning with the corporate strategy. If you don't know about the corporate strategy, you only know your production plan and procurement plan, that's all. You cannot go to the C level. If you want to be at the C level, you want to be an advisor to the CEOs around, you have to be strategic. So this is a change we need, and that is important for the company to survive. But keep in mind, the technical procurement can be outsourced also. It can put a big question mark on your function. So go back to strategic one. That is the one will make your future effective. Actually, I've been advising many companies on this basis. Guys, in your procurement function, you should have somebody with a data analytics. You can't be strategic without a data analytics. First thing, you need a very clean data, correct data, and you should have a staff who should only focus on data analytics. And the data will help you how to become strategic. Post-COVID-19, I know we are still going through the COVID, but the change is happening in a big way, shift towards localization. From globalization, we are moving with this. Digital gets a real push. Everybody wants data at the tip of the button. Cash is king. I can understand around people are suffering with the cash. Funds are very short. Government is trying to pump in some money, but we are still suffering, particularly small, medium, I see around, they are struggling with this. Because the big companies, when give order to them, earlier payment was 30 days, now payment could be in 60 days or 80 days. So they are the one who are suffering with this. Move towards variable cost models, building sensing and control towers. We need control towers to connect everybody. Like in the airport, you have control towers who have a complete picture. So we also need supply chain control tower, logistic towers, procurement chain tower, which connect all the stakeholders. So you have complete information. Resilience is very important around and building agility. So this era is calling for these changes around. When we talk of the new normals, we're talking of anti-globalizations. I know people are talking of globalization will remain, except the concept is moving around is nearshoring around. And if possible, as Government is trying to push it that India should become the future supply chain. And if you want to be the supply chain hub, we have to work very hard on this. So that's the next one is the technology adoptions around. Consumer behavior is changing in a big way. We are always affected by social media. Those of us who have never bought in the past shopping online, now they say, guys, why should I go there? Let me place order online. So consumer behavior is changing around. And the next generation, which is coming, Generation Z, which will come into the jobs maybe next 2 to 3 years, for them it is a normal. For you it may be new normal, but for them it's a normal to be digital. So keep in mind, in the years to come, when Generation Z comes into the top positions around, they will love to be more digital. Like all crises, I hope this will bring the best and the worst in us. The best only if we change with ourselves, and if we stick to our guns, go, no, nothing will happen to me, I'm the best one. And you don't even change yourself, you don't flex yourself, you don't improve your resilience around, then what could happen to that? This is the beautiful thing I would again try to focus on is the ugly duck of transformation. The tactical procurement, operational procurement. Look at the first one, triangle. Operation is a big one. The number of people, activity-wise, next is tactical. Strategic is a very small part. So this ugly duck has to be transformed. So if this ugly duck you want to transform and become much more, when I say ugly duck, because they're basically a support function. Nobody cares for them in the organization, many places. They are not listened at the C level. So if you want to transform this ugly duck to become really powerful, visible, and even to become the CEO of a company, you need to turn it other way around. If this is the way role remains, the people cannot become at the higher level. They can never be the CEOs. But the moment we turn it around, we say, guys, strategic transformation. Digital transformation, the O becomes, operation becomes very small. T becomes also small. I could do P2P automated way, but S is a major thing where I will have 70 to 80% of my spend. This is what we need. So keep in mind, so strategy should be to convert this ugly duck. If you feel that your future, if you're young, you say, guy, in 20 years, I want to be the CEO of the company. I want to be this level around. But if you, then you have to, big change is required around. Sustainable procurement. I know so far we've been only talking about the cost part, but now people are becoming conscious. I think you all have seen last year's when sky used to be clear. I know job-wise, many people were losing job, but other things were there. But environment-wise, all of us, I'm sure you all remember people could see from X city, Y city, even Himalayas and sky clears, everything was clear. So environment also, there's a price for it. Somebody has to pay. When the gutters get spoiled around, the water gets spoiled around, the Ganges gets spoiled around, somebody has to clean. But there's a price for that. So environmental part also should be, nowadays people are coming with the concept, mostly in the Europe I've seen, improve your triple bottom line. Social part and environmental part, in addition to financial benefit. So some people think the CSR concept could be dropped and this could be built into this. If this could be built, then we don't need a CSR. If I'm taking care of environmental goals, as well as social goals, all are built into that. Digital journey. So, well, friend, we're already on this journey now. So, digitizations, there's a word called digitization, there's a word called digitalization. Keep in mind two words different. Digitization could be the guy you do in a hard way, then scan it and say, oh, I've digitized my data. No, I want the digitalization. That means the data is coming by process itself. I always tell one example. I went around to my country office in Philippines. The guy was sitting outside the finance guy. What he was doing? I said, what? The guy was a qualified graduate. I feel pity on that guy. Okay, he's doing for job. I don't think the passion will be there. Each bill he will take, scan it, store it, scan, store. I said, what are you doing? Now the concept has come. If we are going with the e-invoicing around, as somebody said in the beginning before we started the session, then my all invoices are in the digital way. I don't have to scan and do it. You can imagine how many jobs we are saving around, how much cost we are cutting down. So we need to look around digitalization. So that means the whole framework has to be based on this approach around. But keep in mind, all good changes cannot survive without people. And I quote this example very often. People used to complain in 2004-05 in my office. So we don't have any technology, we don't have anything. We came with the ERP. And when we brought ERP, people were still complaining. Oh, this is complex, this is tying our hands around, we can't do any changes around. But that means people have to be trained. At the end of the day, a good technology will fail if people are not receptive. So I would say, if you are thinking of any changes around, make your people receptive to this. Let them accept with the core of the heart. I know people always think around, if this comes, what will happen to my job? I think we need to restructure it. We need to move some people from the routine function to digital function, some to data analytics around. And the structure also has to change. We can't live with the pyramid structure. And particularly when you're working from home, how could you work with a pyramid? You need peer-to-peer structures. So the whole business model has to change. This is where I feel now the new books have to come up around in the business school also and certification program also. If you're still teaching the people old concepts, I think that is not going to fly. I think one good thing we see in our ISM headquarters, they change the syllabus every 4 years. They say the world is changing so fast. If syllabus does not change, that means we are not giving the right education, right certification to the people. So the model which is changing is relentless rise of digital, going from 80s concepts of late 80s, I would call strategic procurement, then became category management procurement, became e-procurement. We are talking of all e-tools. The word E, ERFX. RFX could be RFI, RFP, RFQ, then e-auction, spend cube around, e-contract around, e-catalog around, like Amazon type. So we need those tools around in our system. I know many companies are working on the processes around. The process need to be changed and then bring in these tools around. Then we move to the digital world. And digital world cannot move without analytics. And analytics means you need to correct data around. I have a spend cube, I can do analytics. And then data-driven artificial intelligence I can do around. If I don't have a data, what AI will do? AI can't do anything. So this is, keep in mind, before you go to the digital world, you have to complete this. This is where my next slides tell you this one. MRPs, I started with that carrier when I was in Tata's. I'm going back to 1970s, up to 75, 76, I was there. Then we moved to the ERPs world. Then we moved to the e-procurements, where e-tools have come up around. Now we're talking about digital means procurement 4.0. So those company maturity level, if anyone wants to check your maturity level of your procurement function, you're welcome to visit our site. We have set up a playbook. You can check yourself. It's freely accessible to any one of you. You can check what level you are. Are you at a, what is your maturity level? Majority, even the best company I see in India, they're still 3.4, 3.5 out of 5 marks. So we need to see the maturity. And if you want to be the highest maturity, you have to move into the digital world. So think of all this. But again, keep in mind, no one size for all. Each company has own limitation, own size. So we need to redraw them there. When we want to transform, check your maturity level. This is what I told you. And this is available to all of you free of cost. Just get to our system or contact my staff, Ria. She will help you up to identify what is the maturity level of your procurement. Diagnose the gap in performance and compete. Develop procurement strategies. Develop procurement transformation roadmap. So once you know your gap, then you can do the roadmap. If you don't know your gap, how can you do the roadmap? Then the top people have to bless it. It's a must. If you don't have the support of stakeholders and CEO, it will not fly. And then you have to be a good marketing guy to sell it. And this is where I see many of the procurement people lacking. If you can't make a compelling case, nobody listens to you then. Implementing it and measuring success means develop KPIs. The old KPIs, what you are having in offices, many of them have to change because I had a chance to look at many of them. They need to be changed. Defending values. So you have to focus on value focus, innovator of change. And for that, you need a world-class data strategy. So when you're talking of the restructuring of your office, you need people who focus on data strategy. Use data to inform a category strategy. Drive more informed decision-making. I think this is where I'll explain. This is a very important part. You need to be predictive. Source to contract, S to C. Now people are talking even source to pay also. Complete chain. You want this to be predictive. You want P2P to be automated. Procure to pay should be automated. And supplier management, which is the key pillar again for innovation, has to be proactive. So let me clarify this in little more details. When I want to be S to C, to be in a digital age, to be predictive, what do I need? First, categorize and manage the spend in real time. I want a real time. And leveraging the machine learning, I can do those things. Predict demand with artificial intelligence. So when I talk of machine learning, you may have to have some people, or train some people who can do this thing. Many of your people are with engineering background, young and fresh. I think they can learn it. So you can restructure the job nature also. Predict the demand with artificial intelligence. No landed cost for any commodity for all alternative countries of origin. If one country is not able to deliver me, I want to switch over to another one. System will tell me what is the landed cost with this. Predict future sources of supply. Act on timely alert on all negotiated agreements around. Renewals, penalties, pricing. I could have smart contracts around. And these are only possible once you are getting, this is what we're calling as a predictive process. So your existing process need to be revised around. You have to bring some component of machine learning. You need to bring some component of data. You need to bring some component of all these things. That means your people also need to be trained on them. If you want to survive for next 10, 15 years, certainly you need this. So keep in mind, unlearning the old thinking and coming with the new things around. Typical automation process. Now this is P2P. So P2P means first bullet is automatically sense the material demand. System will tell me the demand has changed. What you are planning is obsolete. In a month, in a week, it could have changed. So you have automatically sense material demand, requisition, replenishment, delivery from suppliers. And now I know my suppliers whom I'm going to buy, eliminate the repetitive process. My RP can take over. Trigger the payments, again could be done automated. I could use through the blockchain smart contract. Many companies have started doing it in India. Smart contracts around. Walmart has started doing for payment of the invoices. So there are places around where we could think of again this thing. So smart contract will tell you when okay, job has been done, completed, clear, payment process. Execute automated secure payments, then again exchange goods through validated and trusted decentralized ledgers around. So decentralized ledger is nothing but the blockchain part. Proactive part. Now you want to deal with the supplier management. If my 90% items are coming to supplier, or even 100% if I'm working in a like company like Apple, because they are the one who are source of my innovation. Monitor potential supplier risk in real time. And I should be having connection not only to the tier 1, I should have tier 2, tier 3. My items are coming from X supplier. I remember the case when I had a contract in one of the country offices. The cables were supposed to come from one supplier, and they were buying from somewhere else. The raw material was coming in somewhere in Africa, the copper part, and the whole chain was broken. And all the time we were asking, the supplier was not able to answer us, tier 1. So I think we have to go further than tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, maybe that's what we need to do. Conduct supplier visits. And I don't have to go personally there. I can do with augmented reality around. I'll say, guy, I'm coming and visiting your company tomorrow. And we are connected augmented reality. I can watch everything, everything. So I can have a 3-dimensional view around. Enhance supplier audit through crowdsourcing. I can get views from various people around. And crowdsourcing we are using even in our social media. If you see our own social media on ISM, we have got many people provide their inputs around. That is what we call crowdsourcing. Everybody gives their own ideas around. So in the process, you learn a lot. Nowadays, the learning is happening around more from peers to peer. If I go 10, 15 years back, nobody questioned. Now people say, I have a problem with this. Can anybody guide me? It's a crowdsourcing knowledge comes in. Collaborate through supplier network. So here comes again, I want to emphasize on ERP is not a solution to address procurement pain areas. So if you have procurement pain areas around, so keep in mind, you have to move into e-procurement. So whenever I talk about people say, oh, we have an ERP. But then I think you need to see still what are the pain areas around how we can solve it. Role of procurement leader is certainly changing. You are not only to save the cost, you're also there to revenue generator, strategy focus, innovation leader. So this again, you can check your maturity level. Procurement, I know it's too early for many of the companies. Maturity level at the process level, at the technology level, at the connectivity level, at the data maturity level, analytics level. So we can help you on this matter as well. So this is the chain which we're talking around, moving from the linear path to circular path, where we can connect everybody through the tower. The technologies which are disruptive technology, which are already in the pipeline, I would say AI is one popular one. RPA is another one popular. IoT is another one. Blockchain is another one. Others. So these are the ones which are becoming very important around. IoT is picked up. I know one company in Gurgaon, they're dealing with IoT. Even in the last year, they hired 6,000 people on it. So IoT is moving in a big way. RPA is another one. Blockchain also is coming, but in a small phases, I would say. Particularly the food item where you want to connect whether the item is good or bad. Like say, if you're buying honey, you would like to know from where it comes, end to end. So you have a faith on honey, what you buy. People are doing milk chain. So something has started moving around in this direction. So keep in mind, wherever you want people to have faith with you, blockchain has important. Blockchain also is important because more we got into digitalization, anybody can hack your data also. That's the negative side of digitalization. Keep in mind. That's why the banks are sometimes conservative. Because more I digitalize and somebody can hack my data, then I could be in trouble. That's where the blockchain helps you. So the blockchain is there. The blockchain technology I know can be used for cryptocurrency also, which government is talking around. But we are talking of the technology per se. And this is bound to happen because everybody wants to protect, everybody wants to be digital, but they also want to avoid the hackers also. So then the blockchain. This is a small idea which gives you idea what exactly is IoT. So I'm trying to give concept. How do we explain? Eyes are like IoT. It's sensors. It senses whenever I'm having a bad time or something, I know they can sense it. So IoT is more like a sensor and you can relate to your eyes. Artificial intelligence is all in the brain. The data goes to your brain, it works on it, and then robotic process automation act according to this. RPA cannot work without IoT and AI. So this gives you good analogies in a real personal life around how our eyes do it, how our brain works around, how our hand movements goes on. So this is the combination gives you beautiful thing. So this is the one if I'm using IoTs, and particularly if I'm shipping, I know we'll never ship the vaccine. Even shipping through air, you want to control the temperature. You want to control the humidities around. And I can change the data if I'm the one who's the manager. I have the data, I can change, everything was fine. But in blockchain, no. So we have which functions to digitalize first. So keep in mind, I know everything cannot be done quickly. So old advice, walk before you run. So you have to do the mapping also. So people and least expensive, first thing you should focus on people. And then talk of least expensive to automate. Don't take the complex job. I know if I have the one very ambitious one, I take a complex job and if I fail, my management will have no faith. So take a small thing, pick a function that touches the least amount of people. It's not affecting everybody around and then least expensive to automate. Lastly, but not the least, I would say the future profile of PSM professionals. The big ideas, you need to have ideas around. Those days are gone, which I've seen in 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000. I could carry on with the same legacy system. Well, I've got 20 years experience doing the same thing. No. Big ideas, brainstorm, think different, be creative enough. So this is where the world is moving in. So we all have to get ready for it. Well, friend, with this, let me put the final thoughts around. Stop assuming that old ways will come back. Remote working does not mean that you just give a laptop. I'm sure you must be feeling it. You just give a laptop is not good enough. It does not replace the existing working when we sit together in the office. So you need to think of new ways. How do I bring the same culture which I used to have in the office in the remote era, so that there's a synergy around? Accelerate best practices around collaboration, flexibility, inclusion, accountability. The word collaboration is very important for procurement. It's no more just sitting in an isolated office and doing it. You need to be a good leader to collaborate. You should be a good communicator with everyone around. Traditional organization structure, no more, particularly when half the team is working from different places. Then you have to transition to agility. You need to be agile. I know so far we have all learned. We were talked about the lean, just in time. So I know Dr. Saroj Kohl is also there in the group around. So I know we've been teaching all this in the colleges around. I've gone through the same thing. If somebody would have asked me 4 years back, 3 years, I would have said the same thing. But no, the focus is, hey guys, it's good to be lean, but you have to be agile. I mean, the bottom line is still agile. Start redesigning supply chains. Accelerate next shoring around. Switch to contactless operations around. So this is the changes happening around. Even in our future certification, we're changing our course content, keeping in mind the experience of 2020. Well, friend, with this, I want to thank you all for the patient hearing. If anybody has any question, I'll be very happy to answer.